It all began when I started to notice quick changes in my mother. No, it's began way earlier than that. That when I really start to think about it, years, maybe even before I could remember the difference between right and wrong, which is pretty long time ago. I had always had been one of the two brothers in my family. Our mother was single. She always had been ever since I could remember. Our father had bailed out on us when the news about me had arrived. We loved our mother, we really did. She brought us nice clothes, and even she couldn't afford it, providing the necessary food and making good homes for us. Everything was great. My mother just had some issues with drinking. It wasn't a problem, it was a big problem. She stayed single even though she tried to meet others. It would always go well in the beginning until she would change her mind and then show the next man out the door. I always had the same story with her. I always felt alone. My brother wasn't very interested in playing with me. Seeing about all he was about 5 years older, he always thought of me as a little annoying little sibling. But all I wanted was company. I didn't find any success in making friends in school or during my spare time. I just spent every minute alone. My mother didn't care, of course. She was too busy trying to finish up her work, so she could spend the last few hours at home drinking her evenings away. But I guess every single second of loneliness brought something out of me. I started to daydream a lot. Making my imaginary friends was one of my favorite hobbies. Yes, a hobby. I made new ones often. It was hard to keep up, even for me. You see, there was this particular imaginary friend. He wasn't like the others. This was just the one who gave me more peace than anything. He played with me, of course, but he only came around at nighttime. Then we would talk and fool around, making super sure my mom didn't hear cheerful giggling. He was an expert on many things, but he did the best at crafting and making me puppets. Every day he'd turn up with a new doll, and any design I wanted to be. That was this thing, the puppet man. I had always managed to escape the fact that I had imaginary friends, but with him, it was hard to deny he actually was there, because I knew who he was. Every night, when he said I had to sleep, he stood away by for another hour to watch and make sure I was actually falling asleep, his golden glowing eyes observing me from afar in this darkness. I stared back at him, and his gray face was keeping me calm as he kept smiling towards me. I fell asleep every night, but I couldn't talk to anyone about the creature visiting me every night. It was odd. Time went on and should have. I grew up and so did my brother. Only thing that seemed to stay with me was my mom's drinking habits. My brother had moved out around the age of 18. He couldn't put up with her anymore. I was only 12 at the time and I wouldn't get out of my home for a long, long time. I was waiting patiently though. I suppose that was the only thing I could do, being so alone. My imaginary friend never left me, however, and it started to become a problem. He continued to visit me every single evening, keeping me company. As I started to ignore him, I was mad. Had been at 12 years old, the whole imaginary friend deal thing was ridiculous. I had other things to do anyway. Homework, playing on my PlayStation 2. I was content. Not happy, just neutral. I also didn't feel lonely. I left that thought a long time ago. Yet here he was, staring at me with his face hidden in his breath in the shadows of my room. Glowing eyes studying at me. Another year passed. No success. I eventually got tired of everything. School was becoming a downer. My mom got worse with her drinking, even to the point where she started to self-harm. She refused to talk to me, even when I tried to. She lost her job eventually, and it was something I wanted to see happen for a long time. It always seemed like something that might help her realize she had a problem. But no. After that, my mom couldn't do anything but sit there, drinking all her problems away. She had become angrier with time. Everyone noticed too. Everyone who was, well, me. I did everything I could not to stay at home, sleeping over my aunt's place, or even trying to contact my brother. But there were certain things I had to stay at home, and it was hell on earth. Every single day she would scold me for nothing, to which it was stupid. Simple things, forgetting to buy milk on the way home, forgetting to cook dinner. What could I do? I was 13. My mother couldn't tell me how sorry she was. She just kept on. And one night, she just lost it. I remembered clearly. It was something about the dishes I had cleaned after dinner. Like always this time, I accidentally dropped the plate. It fell onto the floor, hitting hard, shattered into many tiny pieces. My mom, of course, was furious with me. I could understand her at some point. I get why she was so upset with me, but now I blamed her for everything that happened. But this time she just didn't scream at my face for a minute or two. This time she was acting out violently, throwing a chair across my room. She screamed at me for not being perfect, son, and how she lost everything because of me and my brother. Everything was our fault. A slap to the face, and then she was done. I ran and locked myself up in my room, and there he was waiting for me. It was evening after all, and all the first time in almost 2 years, I spoke to him. He was the only soul I could talk to. Even though he was an imaginary, though, I was basically talking to myself. I didn't care. I desperately needed it. And the first time, he spoke to me. He was more than calm as I thought to be. Your mom, she's evil. I disagreed. She wasn't evil. Or was she? She had ruined my life. She hated me. But I still shook my head. Don't cry, he spoke to me. Big boys don't cry. So calm down. I'll go talk to your mom. Now go to sleep. You'll need it. I did as he said, no questions asked. I went to bed and my heart was pounding when my head was spinning. My mom never checked up on me. She probably would leave anyway. It's probably the only thing she ever did. Giving up on us, on everything in life. It didn't take me long to fall asleep that night. In the morning, I would just return to school like nothing happened and find my same pathetic alcoholic mother the next day. But there was never meant to be another day. I woke up again completely in the dark around me. The apartment had lost all of its power. I didn't wake up by myself though. There was some kind of noise outside of my bedroom, whirly and insecure. I stepped out from my bed and moved out to the hall. It was cracking outside, like someone stepping on ice or broken glass. But it was far more dull than that. My curiosity took over and I continued until I found the source of the breaking and slapping sound. It was my mother's bedroom. What was going on in here? My mother was supposed to be sleeping at this hour. I came closer and the noise appeared louder. After a minute of listening outside the room, I decided to go in. I pushed into the wooden door, stumbled onto my knees. What I saw? No one was supposed to see such a thing. My mom had been thrown towards the floor. Her face was bloody. Her nose seemed broken. She was kneeling down with her arms extended backwards in an unnatural position, hands cramping out in pain. She looked like she was screaming, only coughed out. Wheezing hard, she saw me. That's when I lost it. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. I only crawled up towards my bedside, clutching onto it like it was the only thing that saved me at that point. My mother's arms were breaking in front of my face, something I couldn't see or hear. I could only see her, my mother, scared for her life. And then he slowly appeared before me, his gray hands and face emerging from the shadows. His golden eyes were completely focused on her. Then I could see what he was doing. With one foot on her back, his fingertips webbed golden threads that tied to themselves to their arms. He was breaking my mother's arms in two. The puppet man. When her bones couldn't hold anymore, eventually they broke, snapping in a horrible trail of sounds. I tried to scream again, but everything was once again muted by the sound of my own fright. I tried to calm down. I tried to realize I was only imagining everything. But it was real. My own friend, imaginary friend, was killing my mom, and I did nothing to stop him. He wasn't pleased. I tried to call him, tried to beg for him to stop, but he just wouldn't listen. He only continued to hurt my mother further. He'd take his time and seemed to slowly break every bone in her body. He forced me to sit there, made me watch as he broke my own mother apart. He told me that this was getting rid of evil. I wanted to believe him, but I just couldn't. He broke her legs, ribs, even fingers, bones turning every direction they shouldn't. I screamed and screamed. No one heard me. His golden eyes turned to look at me as he hushed me for one final time. Then he strangled her. Beautiful golden glowing strings of death wrapped around her neck. Sneezing out the last glimpse of life I could see in my mother's eyes, and it was the last thing I could remember before it went dark. I passed out on the floor by the bedside. Our neighbors had heard the screaming and called the police. Everyone pitied on the orphan who was now seeing his mother die in front of her eyes. But according to them, my mother hadn't been murdered. She had been found in the middle of the room, with a noose around her neck. The rope hadn't been able to carry her body after a while, and bristled in two, causing my mother's corpse to fall down to the floor. I never spoke about her death again. Neither I did say another word about my imaginary friend. Maybe it all had been a horrible dream, as he was just in my head. Even at my mom's funeral, I was completely alone. My brother didn't even bother showing up. Only my aunt and uncle were there. Everyone saw this coming somehow. Everyone but me. I spent hours waiting for him to come and pick me up. The only one who listened to me the whole time and held me company, comforted me when I needed the most. And when I was standing by our coffin, I suddenly felt someone grabbing my hand. I smiled, his gray hand on my shoulder. I never thought you'd come back.